So, you've probably heard of Laravel, right? It's one of the biggest names out there for building web apps. But when you first open it up, all those folders and files, it can feel like a lot. So, today, we're going to take a step back and get a bird's eye view, creating a super simple blueprint of how it all fits together. Let's dive in. Okay, to get started, let's think about something you do all the time. You're on a website, maybe you fill out a contact form, and you click submit. That single click, it kicks off this whole chain reaction behind the scenes. But how does the website know what to do? Where does your information go? That's the puzzle we're going to solve right now. Well, the answer lies in something called a web framework. And honestly, the best way to think about a framework like Laravel is to imagine it's a blueprint for a house. I mean, you could build a house from scratch, right? Chop down the trees, forge the nails, but it would take forever. Instead, a blueprint gives you the structure, the plans, and a professional set of tools so everything just works. It's all about building things fast and building them the right way. So let's take a look at that blueprint. We're going to break down a basic Laravel app into its most essential parts. And I promise, by the end of this, you'll see how these pieces all work together like a perfectly oiled machine to bring a website to life. Every single thing that happens in a web app starts with a request. When you type a URL in your browser and hit enter, that's a request. So the first question is, where does that request go when it first hits our Laravel app? Let's trace that initial journey. All right, so you asked for a page, let's say yoursite.com/home. The very first thing that request meets is something called a route. Just think of your routes file as an old school switchboard operator. It sees the incoming call from /home and knows exactly which line to plug it into. In the simplest case, it connects that URL directly to a view, which is really just a fancy name for an HTML template file. And boom, the web page appears in your browser. Simple as that. Okay, that's great for a simple About Us page. But what if there's a button to click or a form to submit? You need some logic to actually handle what the user is doing. Just connecting a URL to a static page isn't going to cut it. There's a piece of the puzzle missing here. And that missing piece is the controller. If the route is the switchboard operator just making the connection, the controller is the project manager who actually takes the call and gets things done. Or an even better way to think about it, it's the brain of your application. And this is where things get really smart. See, instead of cramming all of your application's logic into that routes file, which would get messy fast, you move it into a dedicated controller. A controller's whole job is to take in requests, figure out what needs to happen, process any data, and then decide what the user should see next. It keeps everything clean, organized, and easy to find. So our little journey just got an upgrade. Now the request hits the route, but instead of going straight to a page, the route passes it off to a specific function inside a controller. The controller does all the heavy lifting, and then it decides which view to show the user. It's the essential middleman that runs the whole show. But wait a second, what about the data? If a user signs up, where does their name and email actually go? A real application needs a memory, a way to save information and get it back later. In Laravel, that memory is our database, and the way we talk to it is through models. Now, this is a brilliant system, and there are two parts to it. First, you have a migration. That's the blueprint for a table in your database. It's where you say, hey, my users table needs a column for a name, an email, and a password. Then you have the model. The model is how your code actually talks to a single row in that table. So when you're working with one specific user or one blog post, you're using a model to do it. And models are, no joke, incredibly powerful. They're not just dumb containers for data. They have actual superpowers. You can use them to create new records, update existing ones, or delete them, all without writing a single line of messy database code. But their real magic is defining relationships, being able to say, a user can have many posts, and then easily fetch all the posts for that user. It's a total game changer. Okay, deep breath. We've met all the key players now. We have our routes, our views, our controllers, and our models. Now for the magic. Let's watch them all work together in perfect harmony to do something super common, like creating a new blog post. Just follow the flow here. A user's on a form, that's our view. They type in their new post and hit save. That click sends a request to that /create post URL, which is caught by our route. The route immediately hands it off to the create post function inside our post controller. The controller checks the data to make sure it's valid. And here it is, the key moment. It uses the post model to create a new entry in our database. Once that's done, the controller sends the user back to the home page. See that? Every single component did its job perfectly. So, what you've just seen, this beautiful dance between all these different parts, it's not random. It's a very famous and incredibly powerful design pattern. It has a name, and it's really the secret sauce that makes frameworks like Laravel so awesome. It's called MVC, Model, View, Controller. And you can think of this slide right here as your ultimate cheat sheet. The model manages all the data. It's the app's memory. The view is the user interface. It's what the person actually sees and interacts with. And the controller is the brain that takes the user's input and coordinates everything between the model and the view. Memory, interface, brain, MVC. So, why does any of this matter? It all comes down to a simple idea called separation of concerns. By giving each part of our application one and only one clear job, the whole thing becomes incredibly organized. It's way easier to build because you always know where to put your code. It's 1,000 times easier to fix when something goes wrong, and it's an absolute dream to maintain and add new features to later on. So there you have it. That's the basic blueprint of a Laravel app. You've seen the whole journey, how a simple click travels from a view, gets directed by a route, is handled by a controller, and finally uses a model to talk to the database. It's a simple, elegant, and powerful structure that's just waiting for your ideas. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?